Welcome back. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how session works in the Witty library. Basically, session state compared to other libraries like PHP and ASP.NET works the same in Witty. I personally come from an ASP.NET background, at least in terms of it being a hobby. I've seen examples of it in PHP where you have a session variable and you name the session and you store the value and then you can retrieve the value. In Witty, basically, the best description I've ever seen was in the forums, where basically the answer was any variable that you associate with a widget or an application instance is preserved in that session. So basically, what they're saying is if we subclass or inherit from a Witty application from the Witty application class, any variables that you define in that class are automatically preserved and saved throughout the lifetime of the application and that session. Or if you were to inherit from, for example, let's just say the Witty label, if you were to do your own custom label, inherit or subclass it, any variables that you define in it will also be saved in session. And let me close this. And basically, that's how session state works in Witty. Once you define or subclass, either the Witty application class or the Witty label, that variable or array or list that you define is saved in the application in the session state for as long as the session and the application is alive. So I'm gonna make this a multi-part tutorial and show you how that is done in a Witty application. So the first thing I want to do is I already have an application open, a project open, and it's called session 2. I actually have one called session 1, but I don't want to use that one right now. So basically, this is the same type of application that we have been using throughout most of our tutorials. But what I want to do is show you the application that we'll be using later on for the majority of our tutorials. It's a little bit more complicated, but not really. If you come from C++, you'll understand, separating your code in a header and a source file is really the preferable way to go. So the first thing I want to do is we need to make some changes to our CMake file. This is changes to the configuration of our project. If you look at this right here, this basically sets the source directory, which is right here, and this sets the GCC directory, which is inside of the source directory. If you look at the code, here's the CMake source directory, which is our project directory, and then you have the source folder, which is right here. So this adds the source directory to our project in CMake so the compiler can see it, and then this adds the GCC folder inside of the source folder so that it can be seen as well. But what we need to do now is I need to add the classes directory to our project, and it's basically the same thing. What we want to do is set a variable, and we can call it anything. I'm just going to call it classes, and we need to get access to the project directory, which is the CMake directory or the source directory. So that's the project directory. This is the session 2 directory. And then we just need to add the classes directory that's in our source directory. So source/classes, and this adds this directory right here to our project because that's where I'm going to put the header and the source file. And then basically we need to add these to our include directory so that the include files can be seen by our project. So what I want to do now is add this variable that was defined, and anytime you define a variable in CMake, you just append a $sign and put it in curly braces, and there's the classes directory that's been added to our project. And then once you do that, if you look at here, I've already defined the C++ files. Basically, if you want once you define a header, you need to be able to see the source file unless you do it all inline in the header file. So I use the file directive, and this adds the source files to our project. So as you can see, here's the source directory, the project directory, the source directory, classes, and then just add any source files that we add to our project. And you can go ahead and just close that, and that gets you set up to be able to use this directory in your project. So once we have that bit set up, now we can move on to creating the actual project that we'll need in our application. So I'll see you in the next tutorial. That's just to show you how to get set up in your project, and we will continue this in the next tutorial.